This is Always Listening, Season 3, Episode 1. Welcome to Always Listening. I am your host, Chief Editing Officer for Pro Podcasting Services, Joel Sharpton, and I am always listening. And I'm solo. There's no Josh. There's no guest co-host. But finally, you do have in your ear brand new Always Listening. So let me give you an update on what's going on. Josh is semi-retired. I tried the co-host thing, and frankly, it's a lot of work reviewing podcasts, so not very many people wanted to sign on for that. So here's what we're going to do moving forward. I want to continue bringing you new podcasts to talk about. I also want to provide some tips and my own thoughts on how podcasters or would-be podcasters can improve their show using the examples of the podcast that we're going to discuss here on the show. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. And at least once a quarter, I promise that we will get out a full traditional episode of Always Listening with either Josh or another co-host. For instance, I'm going to tell you right off the top here, you can expect an episode soon of Josh and I together discussing the Gamertag Radio documentary. It's going to premiere at the end of this month, February 2018, on Twitch. So if you're listening to this episode in the future, it's probably already available. But if not, we're going to have our review, give you sort of an update on the Gamertag Radio community. We reviewed that show a few years back. We've gotten to know Danny personally. I just met Paris and Pete at Podfest 2018 in Orlando. They're wonderful guys. They did their first live episode of the show there at the Podfest Multimedia Expo, and it was a blast getting to know those guys, and I got to introduce Danny to my wife and everything. That was really cool. One of my daughters was with us, and so anyway, they've got a tremendous documentary that Danny and the team have put together. It's a really wonderful story, and since we've reviewed them before, I want you guys to know that this is out there. I want as many people as possible to see the documentary, so we're going to be talking about that next episode, as a matter of fact, here on Always Listening. Today, we're going to be discussing Create Something Awesome Today, and you can find it at createsomethingawesometoday.com, by the way, or you could go to robertoblake.com. Roberto Blake is the host of the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, and he is also a guy that I got to meet at Podfest 2018 in Orlando. Podfest, by the way, is 4 years old now. It's a conference that obviously is focused on podcasters, but they have always called themselves the Podfest Multimedia Expo. And one of the reasons is because the founder, Chris Kremitzos, has always been interested in YouTube. So this year in particular, they've opened up a whole YouTube track. There was one whole day of YouTube speeches, presentations, speakers, etc. And Roberto Blake was one of those. I got to be in his first session and the second one that he gave later on. Truthfully, the second one was a little less relevant for me because he focused a lot on hardware and in particular, like the big fancy cameras. And that's just not something that I'm ever going to do on YouTube. But for my own business, for my own brand, for my own fun, I've wanted to do more YouTube, and in particular, a lot of my clients are asking for it. So I was interested in what Roberto had to offer even before I knew who he was. Once I started listening to him speak, he was a very dynamic speaker. He had a lot to offer, and he provided a tremendous amount of value there in the room. So I started checking out his podcast on my way home, and it's really amazing. The Create Something Awesome Today podcast is for content creators, whether you're a blogger or a podcaster or a YouTuber, or you make, video for your 9-to-5 job, whatever it is, if you are creating any content on a regular basis, I think Roberto has something to offer you. He is obviously and clearly focused on YouTube. That's what he's best known for, and that is sort of his particular expertise. But he's been a podcaster, he's been a blogger for a long time, and he's very good at all of those things as well. So I cannot recommend his show enough. The audio quality, it's solid. The content is beyond good if you're some sort of content creator. And the host likability is really good too. Here's the one thing that I'll say about Roberto, and I'm not sure if it's because of his background. I don't know his personal story. I don't know if he has some particular accent. It didn't really come off as I met him. I also don't know, like, one of the things that I do a lot is I mispronounce words, large words especially, and it's because I've read them for years, but I've never actually heard them out loud. No one has said them to me. I've had this conversation with other people before. It's what happens when you are well read in an area maybe that is not so well read, or your circle is not perhaps as well read as you are, or their vocabulary isn't quite as large as yours is. So you're just not exposed to those words in practice. What that means is you end up mispronouncing them and looking like sort of a dummy later on, or a pretentious dummy anyway, which makes it even worse. That is not Roberto's problem, but I did notice for some reason he pronounces a couple of names wildly differently than I do. In particular, John Lee Dumas, who I have always pronounced that way, John Lee Dumas, he pronounced John Lee Dumas, I think. And it threw me off. Anyway, I'm not going to share a clip of that particularly with you, but there was one in the episode that I listened to this morning that I wanted to share with you. This is such a great clip. And the episode is called, it's number 12 of the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. So it was a little while back. How to grow your audience from zero. And again, he focuses on YouTube there, but it's not just on YouTube. This advice in particular is relevant for everybody. So check this out.
Many of you right now, you would love to have 1 million followers, but are you prepared for that success? Do you really think the quality of your work will stand up to the scrutiny of 1 million eyeballs right now? Because if you do, then congratulations and bravo on your confidence. But if you don't feel that you're prepared to show your work to your hero, your mentor right now, then don't complain about people not watching and that you don't have an audience, because you aren't ready for that yet. If you are complaining about that and you are not ready to tweet directly at your greatest mentor, the person who inspires you the most, if you're not ready to show them your work and tell them to hit you with their best shot at critiquing it, if you're not ready for that, then don't worry about who's not watching you yet. Worry about being good. Worry about creating quality content that is worth somebody's time and attention, and worth the time and the attention of your ideal audience, and also of the people that you respect the most and the people that are at the top level in your community. Think about how what you're doing can stand up to them. I'm not saying compare, and I'm not saying compete. Please do not compare yourself to other people, especially people who might have more experience than you. Go ahead and allot yourself the time to get good at something. Get patient real quickly, because, and I know that seems like an oxymoron, but I'm dead serious. Get patient really quickly, because the sooner you develop that patience, the easier a road this will be for you, and you'll respect how long of a climb it actually is.
I love that. I just love that. The guy is super positive. He is also very straightforward. He doesn't sugarcoat things. It's not all everybody's going to get rich, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, I really enjoy him. I'm loving his content, and I think if you are producing anything like what we've talked about, then I think you're going to enjoy his content too. The other plug that I'll give him is I just bought one of his courses. It's not exactly a course. It's really it's a starter kit is what it is. And it is a collection of templates and extra pieces to get you started on YouTube for your video thumbnails, for your profile picture, for your header image, all of that stuff. Something that I've needed for a long time. And the leg up that I've gotten from that is huge. I cannot say thank you enough for Roberto Blake. So that is my review, quote unquote, of Create Something Awesome Today. There are links in the show notes where you can find him, robertoblake.com, as I said, or createsomethingawesometoday.com. And I'd love to know what you think about his content if you check it out. I really enjoy Roberto, and I think you're going to too, whether you watch him on YouTube or whether you listen to the podcast. Here's the other thing, though, that I wanted to say about the cool connections that happen when you're in community. And for anybody that's listening to this, whether you're a podcaster or not, I think that is something that you need to lead into. Whatever your industry is, whatever your hobby is, whatever your passion is, find a community of people that are like-minded and looking for similar goals, and you will be amazed at the things that you can absorb and the connections that you can make. For instance, this past week, I made this connection with Roberto. And then last night, as I'm sitting up working through some of his stuff and trying to absorb all the things that I learned this week, I was on Twitter for a few minutes and I made a connection there as well. I am a big proponent of the iOS app Ferrite Recording Studio for podcasters, or again, anybody who's creating audio content. Even if you're just editing the audio to put into a video, Ferrite Recording Studio is great. It's what I'm recording and editing this episode on right now, as a matter of fact. So last night, as I am talking on Twitter to a bunch of people about all the things that I love about Ferrite and how I had spent a lot of time talking about it over the past week, I presented on using Ferrite Recording Studio for editing, producing, publishing podcasts at PodFest, actually. I met this guy. I believe his name, and I might butcher the pronunciation, Dean Duplessis. And he is Dean_Plessis, Plessis on Twitter. And he calls himself the world's first and only blind cricket commentator, analyst, reporter, columnist. He's from Zimbabwe, or he lives in Zimbabwe now anyway. And he had been using an app called BossJock Studio to record audio and publish it from his iPhone. He's using an iPhone 7 right now. And I just mentioned him and said, hey, you should try Ferrite from Wooji Juice Studios. And I tagged them too. Wooji is the name of the developer that created this app that I use and love so much, Ferrite Recording Studio. We began a conversation, and it turns out that he's never actually done any editing, which is really what Ferrite is about. He's very excited about the possibilities, but he needs a hand up. Well, I have created a bunch of courses on how to edit using Ferrite and how I edit using Ferrite, but I've never had a blind student in my courses before, not that I'm aware of anyway. So what a great opportunity for me. I'm going to reach out to this guy. I already have reached out to the guy. I've sent him links. He's going to go through the courses. Perhaps he can get a lot of information there, hopefully, but also he's going to be able to give me information on how my courses could better serve blind users and blind students. It'll make my courses more helpful. It'll make them more available. I'll have a whole new market that I could potentially sell to and not only make new revenue on, but also a new audience to serve, right? New people to help with the information that I want to share. So I'm very, very excited about that. Dean and I are going to be talking specifically. We're going to have just a personal one-to-one phone call, and I'm going to sort of talk him through my process. But I want him to look at these or listen to these videos first and to see, is my content translatable? Are these presentations that I made thinking that they would be a visual medium? How good are they for somebody who can't look but only listen? Interesting. And I never would have made that connection if I hadn't been actively, looking to answer somebody's question and help somebody out in this community. I wouldn't have ever done that if somebody hadn't invited me into the community in the first place. So for anyone who has ever opened their arms and said, hey, Joel, come hang out with us, or sent me an invite to an event or a group, hey, I appreciate it. And if you have felt like you don't have anybody to commune with on your creative pursuits or your hobbies or your passions, send me a message. alwayslisteningpod@gmail.com, or you can email me, joel@propodcastingservices.com, and let's see if we can hook it up, either in one of my communities or a community that I can help you find. All right. Until next time, I am Joel Sharpton, and I am always listening.
Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've seen enough. Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've seen enough.
Always Listening is a proud member of the Two Guys and a Rogue network. You can find all our reviews by searching Always Listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play Music app. Also, you can find us anytime at alwayslisteningpod.com or email us at alwayslisteningpod@gmail.com. Our theme song is Enough by Bethany Rayburn.
When that day comes and I stop breathing, will you bury me with my love? Will you bury me with my love? 'Cause if I never thought twice about dying, then this ain't no life at all. Honey, it ain't no life at all. Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've seen enough. Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've seen enough. Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've seen enough. Yeah, I know I ain't seen it all, but I've had enough.
Two guys and a rogue.
I'm one guy,
I'm the other.
and this is the network.